Have you ever wondered who is really behind the concept of the real me? We tend to identify ourselves with the kaleidoscope of thoughts, feelings, and memories that flicker through our minds. But is this really the case? Are these fleeting phenomena the essence of who we are? The journey to your true self is the most important journey of your life. The first step to knowing our true self is to realize that we are not our thoughts. We are not the ones who generate them, nor are we the ones who observe them. Thoughts are merely a tool by which we interact with the world. Imagine a computer program that generates text. The text may be a meaningless collection of words, or it may be a profound philosophical treatise. But the program itself is not aware of the meaning of the text it generates. It is simply a tool that does a job. Similarly, our thoughts are a tool used by our consciousness. We are neither a program nor a text. We are what is aware of these tools and uses them. You are not limited by your thoughts. Your mind is not some kind of master that organizes and controls your every thought. Nor are you a fictional character invented by your mind. Instead, the thoughts that constantly flicker through your mind are a kind of illusion, often called ego or personality. They are merely an aspect of your being with which you have identified, but not your true self. Thoughts are fleeting clouds that float across the sky of consciousness. They are impermanent, constantly changing shape and direction, just like the clouds in the sky. It is in this impermanence and inability to fix thoughts in a permanent form that you will find confirmation that they cannot represent your true self. Consider the analogy of clouds in the sky. Imagine looking at them. They can be big and fluffy, then they melt and change into another form. And so it is with our thoughts. They come and go, passing through our mind without leaving a trace. This becomes clear evidence that thoughts are not permanent identifiers of the self, but merely tiny manifestations of mental activity that is constantly changing and transforming. Let's look more closely at how your name, although it is a designation in everyday life, is really just a label that is attached to you, like a label on a bottle. This label is a word, a sound, an idea that has been formed in the minds of others and in your own perception. Your name serves as a means of communication, but it cannot fully define or characterize your true self. A comparison with the cover of a book emphasizes that your name is only a superficial visual representation. Just as the cover of a book does not reveal all of its contents, your name does not encompass the full depth of your uniqueness. When you decide to change your name, it is like changing the cover of your mobile phone. Your inner qualities, your personality, remain unchanged, much like the contents of a phone do not change when you change its appearance. Let us pay attention to the theatrical performance in our inner world. Thoughts in the guise of a person play the role of characters in this imaginary theater of the mind. Within this theater, there is a belief that these thoughts represent ourself. However, it is important to realize that the thoughts are not a true description of ourselves. Rather, they are mind-created images that tell a story about a character who is not necessarily our true self. Thus, the theater of the mind provides us with a colorful visual representation, but does not reflect the full depth and versatility of our true self. Realizing this fact is of paramount importance. It's like realizing that the script is not reality. It's just something we make up. When you realize that you are not rigidly bound to your name and your thoughts, you begin to see yourself as a vast ocean of possibilities rather than a limited character in an illusory play. For example, you may think of yourself as an insecure person, but that's just a story your mind tells you about yourself. In fact, you may be much more confident than you think. Think more deeply about the nature of thoughts. Can thoughts created by the mind feel, see, hear, taste, or smell? The clear answer to this question is no. Thoughts, as abstract constructs of the mind, lack the ability to experience physical reality. Once the mind has created an ego identity, it becomes obvious that it is a mere thought. In this context, we can compare thought to a virtual image that has no sensory attributes. Thought, by its very nature, is incapable of experiencing reality. So what is going on in the process of experiencing? It can't be the separate self because, remember, the separate self is also a product of thought. The truth is that thoughts tell a story, but they do not tell your authentic experience. Experience is not identical to thought. It is a deeper, more direct interaction with the world around you. Immerse yourself in the realization that the ego, which is formed by thinking, is trying to arrogate to itself the right to experience, even though it does not have the capacity for true experience. Thoughts that arise out of your control tell you about events, but they do not indicate the existence of a separate self experiencing those events. The separate self is merely a product of thought and cannot fully experience reality as your unique experience does. Now let's delve even deeper into thinking about the nature of reality, free from the labels and concepts of the mind. The mind acts as a kind of filter, imposing its own interpretations on reality and limiting it to the framework of its own perceptions. However, if we remove these labels, reality will manifest in its raw and unbelievable form, independent of our ordinary perceptions. In this immediate reality, things exist without the need for names or distinctions. When the mind is silent and ceases to impose its concepts, something remains, a kind of awareness that is not attached to the constructs of the mind. This awareness is a kind of thread that connects us to the vastness of the world around us. Let's look at a more detailed example to deepen our understanding. Imagine looking into a mirror, but this time without attaching any labels to what you see. In that moment, the character created by the mind, labeled by your name and defined by your perceptions, disappears. Instead, a deeper, indefinable presence is revealed, experiencing the moment, but not confined within the boundaries of any particular thought or concept of self. Thus, we begin to realize that reality, in its essence, cannot be fully described by the mind. It extends beyond our linguistic and conceptual frameworks, opening up a vast field of potential and awareness. Consider the moment that preceded the creation of your name. Consider how conscious awareness existed without being tied to a particular identity. Before the ego came into existence, before the mind created the concept of I, there was something that could be described as pure awareness. In that state, the idea of personality was absent because the ego, as a thought, had not yet arisen. Continuing the discussion, recognize that thoughts, as constructs of the mind, have no awareness of their own. They may appear and disappear, but they cannot be realized by the consciousness that observes them. It is the consciousness that experiences, hears, sees, tastes, touches, and smells. This consciousness is the thread that connects us to the deeper aspects of our being. As we conclude our reflections, I would like to emphasize that there is a deep reality that transcends the constructs of the mind. You are not just a thought, not attached to the ego, and not a created identity. Consciousness, as the essence of your being, transcends the illusory divisions created by the mind. You are not a separate entity. You are an expression of the universal consciousness that animates all living things. Deepen your awareness of this truth, and you will cease to be an illusion and become an integral part of the infinite tapestry of being. Remember, you are not alone. We are all seeking answers to the same questions. The journey to your true self is a lifelong process. Take your time and do not set yourself unrealistic goals. Just take one step at a time, and you will surely reach your goal.